Welcome back to the show. If you're just joining us, a political bombshell. Boris Johnson is to step down with immediate effect as an MP, sparking an unwanted by-election for the Prime Minister, one that the Tories would likely lose. Let's get further reaction to this story now with the leader of the Heritage Party, David Curtin. David, your thoughts on this?
It's a shock, isn't it, for a Friday afternoon? First Nadine Dorries standing down, and then Boris Johnson. I was just expecting and hoping for a quiet weekend, but I think this is going to be big trouble for the Conservatives. They are not liked around the country because of how they've run the government and over the last 13 years, with lots of things culminating. You know, if you take out, Boris Johnson from the equation, people blame them for the net zero policy. People blame them for the mass immigration that we have. People blame them perhaps also for the effects of the Ukraine conflict and how that is affecting our country as well. People blame them for the rundown in local services and the police and in the NHS and hospitals and so on. So they're not going to have a good time of it. And I think they're going to have a lot of trouble defending these two seats that are coming up for by-election.
Well, yes. Now, David, in an explosive and angry statement, the Prime Minister, ex-Prime Minister, I should say, Boris Johnson, has warned that the kangaroo court investigating him over Partygate is determined to find him guilty. He has accused the cross-party group of MPs of being biased and said he was bewildered and appalled that it was trying to force him out of Parliament. Do you think he's been hung out to dry? Is Boris Johnson the victim of a kangaroo court?
We don't know the sentence of this yet, as far as I understand, that if they do give a recommendation that he's suspended from Parliament for more than 10 days, then that certainly will be this committee hanging him out to dry, because then there will automatically be a by-election. So it looks like he's jumped before he's been pushed, or made the announcement before the committee makes the announcement, if you like. We still don't know what they're going to say and what actually the recommendation is. But I have a different view on this. I mean, my view is the whole governance during the lockdown period was absolutely terrible, and I think they all need to be held account, and they're all responsible for the effects of lockdown on the country. And clearly they were not worried about this, because they were partying and mixing together in Downing Street while making everybody else live alone and live under these draconian restrictions. So my own opinion is the whole lot of them are responsible. And, I would kind of say, they all need to be held to account and brought before a trial, if you like.
Well, I tend to agree with you about the disaster of lockdowns, but of course the government would argue that all the COVID measures saved many lives. It's all about opinions, isn't it? We do have the leader of a political party with us, a very timely appointment, David Curtin, the leader of the Heritage Party. What do you think this evening's developing story, this extraordinary development that Boris Johnson is to step down as an MP with immediate effect, will have on the outcome of the next election, which of course you'll be fighting as well?
Yeah, I certainly will be. We'll have as many candidates as we possibly can put together to stand in the next general election. But to be honest, I don't think it's going to have much of an effect on the next election, because the electorate isn't really going to remember this when it comes to next year. I mean, this is something that we'll be talking about now. It's going to be in the media cycle for a few weeks maybe. But when it comes to the next election, that will probably be autumn 2024. This will all be ancient history. And I think a lot of people around the country that I speak to have already made up their minds, and they're disillusioned with all of the main parties that are in Westminster at the moment, and they're looking for something different. And they're getting out of the mindset that we have in this country of voting Labour because they don't like Tory, and they vote for the Tories because they don't like Labour. People are looking for something new because, from my perspective anyway, the Conservatives, Labour, Lib Dem, Greens, they all seem to have coalesced into more or less having the same set of policies. They're all following the green agenda. They're all, to some extent, following wokery and restrictions on on free speech. And a lot of people have had enough of it. So I think when the next election comes around, people will be looking for something different.
OK, my thanks to the leader of the Heritage Party, David Curtin, and our deputy political editor, Tom Harwood. Look, this is a massive story if you're just joining us. Boris Johnson is to stand down as an MP with immediate effect from his Uxbridge and South Ruislip constituency.